On the chilly evening of February 3rd, 2019, in the quiet suburban neighborhood of Spring Valley, Pennsylvania, a nightmare was about to unfold in the Williams household. The streets were peaceful, lined with bare trees gently swaying under the streetlights. Inside the cozy two-story house on Oakwood Drive, David Williams, a successful real estate agent in his mid-40s, lived with his wife Sarah and his 19-year-old daughter Emily from his previous marriage. To anyone looking in from the outside, they seemed like the picture of a happy family. David had found love again after the death of his first wife, and Sarah, warm and charismatic, seemed to have blended effortlessly into the family. She took on the role of stepmother with ease, and over the years Emily, who had been resistant at first, grew close to her. Everything appeared normal until it wasn't. As time passed, subtle changes began to surface in their household. Emily, once a lively and cheerful young woman, started withdrawing into herself. She spent more time alone, avoiding conversations and seeming lost in thought. Her grades were still good, and she wasn't dating anyone, so her father assumed she was simply dealing with the usual struggles of growing up. However, Sarah's behavior also started to change. She became more distant, often away from home with vague excuses about visiting friends or running errands. The tension between Sarah and Emily grew, though David couldn't put his finger on why. David began noticing awkward moments between the two women, moments of silence that seemed filled with unease. When he asked Emily what was wrong, she brushed him off, saying everything was fine. Sarah did the same, dismissing his concerns by claiming they were just having typical disagreements. But David couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. Then in March 2019, the situation escalated. One evening, David came home earlier than usual and overheard a heated argument between Sarah and Emily. Though their voices were muffled, the intensity was clear. As he walked up the stairs, he saw Sarah storming out of Emily's room, her face flushed with anger, while Emily sat distressed, her eyes red and puffy from crying. David tried to get them to open up, but neither Sarah nor Emily was willing to talk. Little did he know that Emily was hiding a secret one that would soon tear their family apart. Emily had been in a relationship, but it wasn't with a classmate or friend. Instead, it was with her stepmother, Sarah. The affair had started months earlier. What began as a close, supportive bond between stepmother and stepdaughter had developed into something far more intimate. Emily, confused and vulnerable, was drawn to Sarah in ways she didn't fully understand. Sarah, caught between her role as a mother figure and her attraction to Emily, found herself tangled in a web of emotions. The relationship had remained hidden for a while, but the strain was beginning to show, and Emily, overwhelmed with guilt, had tried to distance herself from Sarah. But Sarah's hold on her was too strong. As the tension in the household grew, it was only a matter of time before the truth would come out, leading to devastating consequences for the Williams family. The intensity of Sarah and Emily's affair was reaching a breaking point. As the days passed, the tension between them became unbearable. On April 15th, 2019, the secret came crashing into the open. That evening, David Williams received an anonymous email. There was no message, only a series of photos of Sarah and Emily in intimate moments that shattered any illusion of innocence. As David scrolled through the images, disbelief quickly turned into rage. Without confronting either of them, David stormed out of the house, overwhelmed and furious. He spent the next few days in a hotel, refusing to answer calls from Sarah or Emily. The betrayal cut too deep. But on April 20th, David returned home, determined to face the truth head-on. What he didn't expect was just how dangerous the situation had become. In his absence, Sarah and Emily's relationship had spiraled out of control. Emily, racked with guilt and fear of her father's reaction, had tried to end things with Sarah. But Sarah, once a caring stepmother, had grown possessive and obsessed, refusing to let Emily go. And their once secret affair became a source of constant, heated arguments, turning their home into a battleground. Then on the night of April 23rd, tragedy struck. Around 9 p.m., the neighbors heard screams and loud crashing sounds coming from the Williams house. A passerby made a frantic 911 call, reporting the disturbance. When the police arrived, they found the front door ajar in a horrifying scene inside. Emily was lying on the living room floor, barely conscious, with blood pooling from a deep wound on her head. Standing over her was Sarah, clutching a fireplace poker, her face pale and her eyes wide with shock. Something had gone terribly wrong. As the police restrained Sarah and rushed Emily to the hospital, the grim truth of the night began to emerge. Emily's injuries were severe, and doctors worked through the night to save her. Meanwhile, Sarah was taken into custody, charged with assault. Yet the full story of what had led to the violence was still unclear, leaving both the police and David with countless questions. And what had pushed Sarah to such an extreme? Was it a crime of passion, or was something even darker at play? As the investigation continued, shocking details surfaced. Emily remained in critical condition, fighting for her life, while Sarah sat in jail awaiting formal charges. The police were determined to find out what had caused their already strained relationship to explode into violence. In the days following the attack, David stayed by his daughter's bedside, praying she would wake up and provide the answers he so desperately needed. The betrayal he felt was overwhelming. How could the woman he had loved and trusted, someone who had helped raise his daughter, be responsible for such a horrific act? The police, equally determined, continued their search for the full truth. As new details came to light, the true depth of the twisted relationship between Sarah and Emily began to unfold, setting the stage for a final and devastating confrontation. Detectives began to piece together the events leading up to the tragic night of April 23rd, uncovering a chilling pattern of manipulation, emotional abuse, and control. Sarah had not been merely a loving stepmother to Emily. Behind closed doors, she had wielded a disturbing influence over her stepdaughter, manipulating her emotions for months. What had initially seemed like a close bond had twisted into something far darker. Sarah's obsession had grown uncontrollable, and she used her position of power within the family to manipulate Emily into a relationship that crossed every boundary. Emily, emotionally vulnerable and grappling with her identity, had been drawn deeper into the affair, unsure of how to free herself from Sarah's grip. By the time she tried to pull away, Sarah's possessiveness had reached a dangerous level. On the night of the attack, tensions were at an all-time high in the Williams household. David's sudden departure after receiving the anonymous email exposing the affair left both Sarah and Emily on edge. With David gone, the reality of the situation weighed heavily on Emily, who, overwhelmed with guilt and fear, begged Sarah to end their relationship for good. But Sarah refused to listen. What followed was a heated argument that spiraled out of control. Consumed by anger and desperation, Sarah grabbed the fireplace poker and, in a fit of rage, struck Emily, knocking her to the floor. Some Emily's physical injuries were severe, but the emotional scars cut even deeper. It became evident that Sarah's obsession had driven her to the edge, and now there was no turning back. But the story didn't end there. As detectives continued their investigation, they uncovered a shocking revelation that changed everything. During a search of Sarah's belongings, police discovered a hidden journal tucked away in her closet. Inside were disturbing entries that provided insight into Sarah's mindset leading up to the attack. The journal detailed her plans to run away with Emily, revealing an unhealthy mix of love, jealousy, and control. In the weeks before the assault, Sarah had written obsessively about her stepdaughter, expressing her determination to keep Emily close, even if it meant destroying everything. One entry, dated April 21st, 2 days before the attack, stood out. "I can't let her leave me. She's everything to me. If David finds out, we'll lose it all. But I need to make her understand that we're meant to be together, no matter what. If I have to, I'll take her away where no one can find us, but I won't let anyone stand in our way, not even her." With this new evidence, the prosecution pressed forward with charges of attempted murder, along with assault and unlawful restraint. The trial that followed captivated the nation as the sordid details of the affair and the depth of Sarah's obsession were made public. Throughout the proceedings, David Williams remained a constant, silent presence in the courtroom. His once perfect family had been shattered, and the woman he had loved now stood accused of trying to kill his daughter. The betrayal was etched deeply into his face as he listened to the harrowing accounts of Sarah's manipulation and Emily's suffering. After months of recovery and several surgeries, Emily finally took the stand, ready to tell her side of the story. Her testimony was heartbreaking. Emily recounted the months of emotional control Sarah had exerted over her, speaking of how she felt confused, trapped, and powerless to escape the toxic relationship until it was too late. Her words were raw and powerful, painting a vivid picture of Sarah's disturbing influence. The jury deliberated for several days, but their verdict was unanimous, guilty on all charges. Sarah was sentenced to 25 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 20. For many, the sentence seemed too lenient, given the profound damage she had caused, but for David and Emily, it marked a step toward healing, a chance to finally move on from the nightmare they had endured. As the years passed, Emily worked tirelessly to rebuild her life. The scars of the past would always remain, but with therapy and her father's unwavering support, she gradually found a sense of normalcy. She returned to college, determined to finish her degree and begin a new chapter, one free from the darkness that had once consumed her. For David, the road to recovery was long. The betrayal from Sarah had left deep emotional wounds, but his primary focus remained on his daughter's well-being. He sold the house on Oakwood Drive, unable to bear the memories that haunted every corner of it. Spring Valley eventually returned to its peaceful routine, but the tragic events that unfolded inside that home would never be forgotten. This case serves as a stark reminder of how easily love can turn into obsession and how even those we trust most can harbor dangerous secrets. Thank you for joining us on True Crime Pulse. Until next time, stay safe and be vigilant.